Mayor Mamdani just got exposed by his own city council, who put it in writing that hundreds of millions of dollars were sitting in his budget for city jobs that were never filled.
On April 1st, 2026, the New York City Council released its official response to the mayor's first budget plan. But this document didn't read like a political response. It read like a criminal correction of his math to the tune of $6 billion. This wasn't a Republican attack. 51 members sit on that council, and 46 of them are Democrats. This was a declaration of war from his own side. And buried in the final night of this 90-day war is a second, smaller number that flips the mayor's entire economic argument completely upside down. A number that proves his promises were built on phantom paychecks. Today, we are looking at the phantom payroll. We are breaking down the City Council's discovery of $860 million parked behind jobs that were never filled, the mayor's attempt to destroy the woman who found it, and the final June 30th handshake that served as his ultimate confession. To understand why this budget battle detonated the way it did, we have to look at the mess the mayor inherited. When Zohran Mamdani walked into City Hall on January 1st, he faced a genuine crisis. His office branded it the Adams budget crisis, pegging the financial hole at roughly $12 billion over 2 years. Nobody disputed the hole existed. It was his fix that started the fire. Mamdani unveiled a plan that seemed designed to provoke. A 9.5% property tax hike, projected to raise $3.7 billion, a massive $980 million withdrawal from the city's rainy day fund, and another $229 million yanked directly out of the trust that pays for retirees' health benefits. The strategy was simple: tax more, drain the savings, and dare anyone to blink. But his own party didn't blink. They hit back with a number he couldn't explain away. On April 1st, the City Council put their response on paper. It came out under the name of Speaker Julie Menon. She is a Democrat, and she was the one colleague Mamdani couldn't simply wave away as a right-wing extremist. Her members identified just over $6 billion in resources the mayor's plan had completely missed. $3.5 billion in cost re-estimates, $2 billion in efficiencies and savings, another $529 million in revenue. How do you find $6 billion without cutting a single service? Mostly by checking the mayor's assumptions, line by line, and one specific line item did all the talking: the $860 million phantom payroll. The council said that $860 million was budgeted for salaries and wages that nobody was actually earning. The council's language in the document was almost painfully polite, and honestly, the polite spreadsheet wording is the most brutal part. They wrote, "These were positions budgeted for in the financial plan that simply have not been filled. Jobs on paper, with real money parked behind them, and paychecks going nowhere." The council's ask was almost modest: resize the salary budget to what the city will actually spend this year, because the savings, in the document's own words, have already accrued throughout the year. They even added a line just in case anyone accused them of trying to gut the workforce, stressing that the council believed these positions should be filled. Translation: keep every single position you want. Just admit the $860 million hasn't gone anywhere. And the plan wrapped around this finding was the truly dangerous part. Speaker Menon's proposal, in her words, closes the shortfall without raising RTI taxes. It kept services whole. It left the rainy day fund completely untouched. Linda Lee, the Democrat chairing the council's finance committee, put her name right next to it. Here was a mathematical road out of the crisis that required absolutely none of the pain Mamdani had spent 3 months calling unavoidable. The only question left was whether the mayor would take the road or torch it. The Albany trap and the attack on Menon. Mayor Mamdani got his answer quickly. He chose to torch it. Within hours of the report's release, he didn't argue about spreadsheets. He made it personal. He posted a video and he named Julie Menon directly. He warned that if the speaker's proposal were adopted, it would result in slashing billions of dollars from agency budgets. Then came the sentence he would spend the entire summer trying to outrun: working New Yorkers would pay the price. His written statement went after Minen personally, her proposal, her name, not the council as a whole. On substance, he accused her of double-counting previously identified savings, which he claimed did nothing to close the deficit. His Office of Management and Budget backed him up. An official there told Politico that the $860 million wasn't actually sitting in an empty account. They claimed some of it was already covering real costs, like part-time education staff, and that yanking it out would amount to direct cuts. That is the mayor's side of the story, and it deserves the airtime. In his telling, the money never vanished into empty job lines. It was quietly holding up classrooms. One of these two versions of the same ledger is wrong, and both of them were written by Democrats. Minen held her ground. She stated she absolutely believed in progressive taxation, but then warned that his proposed millionaire tax would end up pitting states against each other and chasing the tax base out of town. And that answer exposed the real problem underneath the mayor's anger. His plan didn't actually run through City Hall, the millionaire tax and corporate hikes he was counting on needed Albany's sign-off, and Albany hadn't said yes. Without the governor, his math had a hole in it roughly the size of the council's entire counter-proposal. His fallback, reported across the city's press corps, was the property tax threat. If Albany wouldn't tax millionaires, homeowners would get the bill. Which explains the strangest scene of the spring. 2 weeks after warning that Julie Menon's plan would hurt working New Yorkers, Mamdani stood right next to her at a joint appearance, both of them, on camera, asking Governor Hochul to send the city more money. 14 days. That was the gap between working New Yorkers would pay the price and sharing a microphone with the woman he said would make them pay it. The early warning and the spring collapse. While the mayor was flip-flopping, one voice inside his own party had already called the entire fight back in March on the one network Democrats aren't supposed to touch. Her name is Melissa DeRosa. She is a Democrat and hardly a fringe one. For 4 years, she ran New York State's government as Andrew Cuomo's top aide, the most senior unelected job in Albany. On March 24th, on Fox News, she looked at Mamdani's budget plan, which was then pushing $127 billion, $9 billion more than the year before, and said it embodied all of the worst stereotypes about Democrats. She listed them: tax and spend, reckless, lighting your money on fire. Then she summed up the coming war in 5 words: the math is not mathing. She even predicted where it would land politically, warning that Mamdani was turning into the perfect foil for every Republican around the country. She saw that he was handing the GOP a ready-made message for the midterms. Line up the sequence she kicked off. March. A Democrat operative who ran Albany says his math doesn't work. April 1st, the Democrat Council puts a $6 billion correction in writing, with $860 million of it parked in job lines nobody filled. Mid-April, the mayor attacks the speaker by name instead of answering the numbers, then stands beside her, begging the governor for cash. And then, the collapse. As spring wore on, the pillars of his own plan started dying one by one. The first piece fell in May. Mamdani released his executive budget at $124.7 billion, down from the roughly $127 billion draft critics had been waving around since March. And look at what was missing: the $980 million rainy day fund withdrawal. The move Minen had pushed back on hardest was simply gone. The new plan balanced without rating reserves at all. There was no defiant video this time. The reserve-free math he had called unrealistic in April was now sitting in his own budget. Then the second piece fell. In that same document, the 9.5% property tax hike, the single biggest lever in his plan, the threat he had hung over the city while waiting on Albany, was gone too. The millionaire tax never made it through Albany in time. By June, nearly every load-bearing part of the March plan had been carried out of the building, and what stayed standing was the exact framework he had said would slash billions. The City FEPS fight and the June 30th handshake. But June turned ugly anyway, and this part shows you exactly where the trust had gone. The last fight wasn't about taxes, it was over City FEPS. That is the city's rental voucher program for New Yorkers on the edge of homelessness, which the city council had been fighting in court to expand since 2023. As a candidate, Mamdani promised to stop fighting the council's expansion in court, but once in office, he reversed course and kept the lawyers going. So, 5 days before the July 1st deadline, Julie Meenan canceled the ceremonial budget handshake. She killed the friendly photo op that every mayor counts on when a deal is near. Council members spent the entire weekend hammering the mayor on social media, a Democratic Socialist mayor elected on affordability, getting publicly worked over by his own party over housing vouchers. When the final deal landed, the Nonpartisan Citizens Budget Commission warned that it leaned on one-shots, short-term savings and cost shifts to future taxpayers. In plain English, the same fight is already loaded for next year. Mamdani all but admitted this, calling it only the first budget of our administration and promising more will follow, which leaves the handshake itself. June 30th, the last night, the cameras rolling, the deadline looming. What he actually signed in that room settles the argument he started on April 1st. At 8:07 p.m., the city council voted 45-6 hours before the deadline. Zohran Mamdani shook Julie Meenan's hand on a $125.8 billion budget. Now, read the terms. Property taxes stayed exactly where they were. The 9.5% hike was dead. The rainy day fund stayed full. The council even walked away with the voucher expansion he had been fighting in court, at least $300 million over 2 years. And then came the number this entire fight was hiding. The mayor's own press release bragged about adding $350 million to the city's general reserve. Read that again slowly. The man who opened the year planning to pull $980 million out of the city's reserves closed it by depositing $350 million into them and sold the deposit as fiscal responsibility. Every headline plank Mamdani unveiled that spring folded. The framework he called service slashing on April 1st is the exact framework he signed on June 30th. Name the pattern, because the pattern is the story. Declare a crisis. Propose the maximum tax and drain. Attack the first Democrat who checks your math, then quietly sign her framework and call it a roadmap. That last phrase is his, taken directly from the handshake ceremony. The roadmap is the exact same document he said would make working New Yorkers pay the price. Even the peace treaty had a warning taped to it. The council's 5 Republicans voted no because a planned increase in police headcount got dropped from the final deal. One Democrat, Athena Stevens of the Bronx, voted no with them. After 3 months of war inside his own party, the truce couldn't even come back unanimous from his own side. Most people saw a 10-second handshake clip on June 30th and moved on. They missed the 90 days underneath it. They missed his own party checking his math in public. They missed him attacking the messenger instead of the numbers. And they missed every one of his big-ticket answers dying quietly between March and June. In April, the mayor warned that his own party's math would make working New Yorkers pay the price. In June, he signed it. The handshake wasn't a compromise. It was a confession.